Coming back on stream here, so give me a moment here to check my signals, and once we get an affirmation that we are up and running, we'll punch all it. Check. This doesn't seem like it's it. Hold on real quick. There we go. Hold on real quick. All right, cool. So let's see. Hey, if you follow me on Discord, I've just posted that I'm live on Discord, and let's see. I've got a couple channels I want to punch here real quick on Discord. Yeah, Twitter. Did I say Twitter? If you follow me on Twitter, I'm live on Twitter right now. But I also lurk on the Keith Baker's Eberron Discord, as well as hang at the DMsGuild, DTRPG Discord. I am at Terran Indestructible Pounds Discord constantly. I'm actually one of the moderators there. And Durzazad's channels, Growing Momentum, Trant Monk, Dungeoneers Pack, Fry Minis, Zipperon, Cleric Corner, and Rich Mary. Hey guys, everybody at all, jump on board. What up? So let's see. I've got all my shoutouts done, and I can now focus in on the production. So let's see, I got my windows arranged, and okay, great. So yeah, we've been building the adventure for Eberron, Crystals of Mabar. You can check a link down, there's a DMsGuild link down below that shows you a bunch of books that I've done, mostly to point out that I build books when I publish them cover to cover. You can read the entire thing, see what you like about it, grab it, use it. If it works out for you, be welcome to come back and buy it. Leave a 5-star review saying, hey, this rocked. Here's what I liked about it, yada yada. We are going to continue our map for the cemetery in Act 2, which is inside the Manifest Zone. This is Region 2. We've talked a lot in previous streams about its locations inside of the Carwood Forest. This is connected to the flooded fort which we had built, and the topside entrance which we had built, and this too has a secret passage that leads down into the underground laboratory. So if this is your Act 2 centerpiece, you don't have to use any of the other maps to lead into Act 3, where the heroes can defeat the cultists. So this is a cemetery. We're in the process of basically ripping it up and flooding it, poltergeist style. So these are all graves that the dead have risen from. This will be a puddle of water once we're done. Here's this where the land has eroded away as a result of the necrotic powers of Mabar itself. And so each of these little dwibbles that we have here represent another pocket of rot, where we will tear out all of the graves the same as we have done here. So this is the cobblestone path that lines the cemetery to make it easy to traverse. Connection points through here. These are all cobblestone paths as opposed to just gritty soil outside there and inside of these cemetery patches. These are shrines to fallen necromancers, pillars of valor which no longer have statues on them, and this is the central crypt where the Bone Knight and its shade commanders, spectral commanders, hang out to continue leading their undead forces from beyond the grave. That's how that shit shakes out. But for the here and now, we're doing some deepened cartography. So we are looking at our pixel brush, which has a pixel count of 3, and we will be going into the bloody blahs. There we go. So we will spend X amount of time fatiguing these flagstones that line the area. This is a gazebo. You can see the flagstones. Well, you can see down here pre-fuckery. The cobblestones lead into, like, here's a squad of 16 that are standout specials, and here's a gazebo that's in the process of sinking into this mire. Here's an untouched gazebo. Here's a ruined gazebo. You can see it's breaking down. So the topography here is demonstrating the overhead view tactical for moving through this environment, while also the aesthetics of, like, these cobblestones breaking up. And here, I'm gonna do that. These cobblestones breaking up into the little pieces and then falling into what is gloopy water. Yeah, I'm going to set a timer. Just to keep things moving forward on my clock. 20 minutes on the block. Like, if you've been here before, you know, every 20 minutes it'll pop off. And it gives me a chance to make sure I get something to drink and to reevaluate where we are on the map to see if I need to get out of being hyper-focused on something that doesn't need it. It's mostly what the timer is for, is to trigger me to reevaluate where am I at in the project and how am I spending my time right now. So right now I'm looking at crumbled flagstones that are falling into the water line. So I want to be about like that, and I need to change the shape of these flagstones like that. You know what? Nah. I think this flagstone should be like this. Cha-da-cha-da-cha-da-cha. Complicated shape interaction. Now this will have soil underneath it, and then these broken flagstones atop. So I'll be working different textures and colors into this space. It's going to be interesting. This is by far the most dynamic map of the four that we've built so far. 4 built, 2 completed. This is number 3 to complete. I know I won't be streaming this all day, but I will be working on it mostly all day. If that counts. But yeah, finishing this map is certainly one of my holiday week off objectives, just to get the work done. So I'm pretty happy with how that's sitting. I think I can safely walk away from this area at this point. Do that. Do that. Alright, hold on. What's going on with this? Oh, that's right. This is where the edge of the cobblestones just happen to be at. Alright, I need to make sure I don't confuse myself in that process. Get rid of that. Three pixels for the flagstones. Distinguish them from the thinner lines for the contours. Less organic. I need less organic over here because it's cobblestones chip easily. They don't. They less erode as they do crumble. If that makes sense. So you're not going to have a lot of smooth curves coming off of crumbled cobblestone. It's going to be broken, jaggedy shards, which is what I'm attempting to express with these plates, these plate-like looks that are falling into the water and around in this area in general. Making sure I'm at 3 pixels up here for the proper slope, top of the slope, the edge of that line space. The problem with these maps is maintaining the same level of quality and focus over the course of the project. And again, streaming these things daily certainly helps a lot to make sure that I stay on top of the quality of the work that I'm doing. But when you move from one area to another, like maybe like this is a lot sketchier than say over here is. Like they're both sketchy AF, but and that's the challenge that I have to fight. I can get all this interesting texture in there, but I have to make sure it's clean. It at a far it reads neat, but character interaction is going to be probably about this level. So if I have too much grit going on, it doesn't provide information. It creates questions, and a good map is something that you can visual. Like when you look at it, your brain can like visualize the environment that this thing is expressing as an overhead view that your characters are sitting inside of in three-dimensional space, that you're projecting theater of the mind into what you can experience. So it has to be, readability is everything in a map. And if I have too much grit, texture, and organic line slop where there's supposed to be a hard material, then what's being expressed will get muddled. Like all these little furry feet that are sticking off from here. The texture reads well at a distance because it reads as old and cracked. But when you get in closer to it, it's in all reality, it's just incomplete lines. And that is not the materials that I am attempting to express with this particular piece. That's the thought process anyway behind topography and building maps, with different textures and environments. So that is what we are currently combating. The Fuzzy Feet Brigade. We gotta knock their armored unit out before it fortifies its position. Just starts raining doubt on us from afar for the rest of the project. We just really don't need that kind of interference with our workflow process. So here we are, doing the work. Policing our shit. Would be a accurate subtitle for this particular stretch. But there's no reason necessarily for me to stream the full the full process of cleaning all this up. That might not necessarily be exciting content. I'm trying to figure out. It's interesting. The muse, she'll want to talk about what she wants to talk about, and then she'll go quiet for a while, and I have no idea what's going on. and so I just fall into the silence. Like, you gonna say something? And she's like, "No, I'm not gonna say anything." It's like, well, aren't you piloting right now? It's like, I thought you were piloting. It's like, who the fuck is piloting right now? And then it's like a Toon says then it's like Toon says the driving cat. No one is driving really. Toon says is not really driving. It's just Toon says just drives everyone off a cliff every episode, and that's the end of the episode. Everyone's dead. So my muse and I were trying to figure out, how can we make sure we're handing off driving back and forth, It's been a hot second to figure that out, but it's been enjoyable. Oh my god, the cleanup on this is just rancid. It's so bad. What have I done? This is why I only work on each piece so much per day, because I don't have, for cartography in particular, I don't have the endurance to be able to run the same hex or the same grid for 8-hour stretches. It's I can do an organic painting for 8 hours, but it's the hard mechanical language of making sure you know what each one of these lines is expressing as a texture in the piece. Like, can this stay or can this go? That's gotta go. That's gotta go. That's gotta go. This needs to be cleaned up. This is a different type of endurance muscle. So I am never been a big cartographer on stream before. It was always just been illustrations and text design. But now that we're adding cartography into the mix, it's a new level of challenge for Phil. And honestly, I appreciate the opportunity. It's nice to discover where a new skill set needs to be developed to level up what it is that you're attempting to do. honestly leads a lot of credence to the downtime training variant rule for character level ups in various games, especially D&D as an optional rule. Hold on real quick. Boy, that happened. All right. Yeah, we are digging through the line work here to make sure that at this level of scrutiny, at 160%, this is the size I would anticipate. This is like the closest I would expect for tokens to be in the VTT environment. Just as a comparison, this level of zoom, this 167%, is probably comparable to what you guys can see here at 100%, like at 85%, maybe even 100%. Like, yeah, let's clip it down to 100. I suspect what you can see on the map is about where I'm at here at 160%. I have quite the visual deficit. So I have to zoom unnaturally close to things to suspect I know what level of detail my audience, you guys, are likely to see. Like, I'm always seeing less than you, so it means that I have to be a little bit more confident in the details that I am placing in my work, because chances are you'll be able to see flaws sooner than I can, which is makes me a little paranoid, honestly, but it also helps guide my sense of completion. Like, is this actually done? Let's zoom in a little bit and see how garbage it is, and what can you do to clean it up to improve your game, which adds a lot of production volume to the workflow. But figuring out how to speed all that stuff up while maintaining the same level of quality, and in fact improving the level of quality of like line weight, angles, cleanness when it's needed. Like, my sketch style is fun if that's the kind of style that I'm deliberately attempting. But if it's just an accident, it's not a style. It's incomplete training. And I talked about this before. The difference between style, like style develops when you aren't good enough to be able to render perfect reality. Like, if you can't do hands right, then you're going to develop a hand that de-emphasizes accurate hands. And if the style is aesthetically pleasing, you'll get away with it. But you are attempting to get away with something, have no doubt. If you were really good at hands, you wouldn't need a style for your hands. You'd just be drawing hands. And so the style starts when you step away from reality. Like, I am not attempting to render perfect reality now. I am settling for something less than perfect reality for the sake of the style. And let's take animation, for instance. Like, you can have, like, Dexter's Lab is a very simple style. But the same studio that produces Dexter's Lab could have produced Magical Pretty Girl Sammy using full Japanese anime techniques with incredible skeletal musculature and perfect anatomy. It's the same design studio. It's a different. It's a different style. Dexter's Lab is a cartoon style as opposed to Magical Pretty Girl Sammy being just a straight up anime. And even anime itself has its own layers of style. Like Tenchi Muyo is a bit more cartoony than Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is more cinematic, meaning more accurate and lifelike anatomy. Just it's like it's a next level up in hyper realism in the art style that they're portraying in Neon Genesis, as opposed to Tenchi Muyo or certainly Dexter's Lab. Some of those style decisions with animation studios are also budget. We're intentionally making it lower quality because we don't want to pay for the studio to invest the extra manpower in producing the cells needed at this level of quality in animation. You see that a lot in like lower frame rates in different cartoons and different eras of cartoon development as a cinematic experience versus a Saturday morning cartoon, for instance. So, Anzi, hey man, good to see you. So I'm talking about how sloppy my line work is and where does style begin and quality end. But this is what we've done since last stream. We've torn up this lot, making for some interesting topography. And it's a subtlety, but I think worth pointing out that the amount of eye interest is being drawn towards this area here. I mean, this is the most densely populated area of texture and contrast and points of interest thus far in the project. And it's like hollow ground, hollowed out here. And then this is broken stonework. So I can fix this. Herp. Another 20 minutes on the block. But once we get all the... So, from afar, you can see the sinkhole, major sinkhole here. Another decent sized sinkhole, small puddle here. This is all broken up, and then we're going to flow into this one down here. But each one of these graves... I need to finish those graves real quick, but they all have their own little topography, so you can fall in this little pit of nasty water. But what I want to do is try to keep this and these over here more simple while increasing the amount of complexity along here, fading less away from it, and like having maybe like this is a major point, this is a major point, and this is a major point. Those are the three most significant points here, here, and here. These intact gazebos and this crypt. So I want to have more texture, more interest among these three areas that it looks like it's the focal point of the piece. Mechanically focal point, where there's more complicated language in proximity to this object, to this object, to this object, as opposed to over here in this corner being de-emphasized. This is not where the treasures of discovery in this encounter lie. They are over here in this region, here, all through this band. This is all that the adventure, this map basically revolves around these 3 points. Hidden passageway here. Fight scene with a hidden passageway that connects to this hidden passageway. Leading at this angle is north off towards the topside entrance and leading down into the underground laboratory. This gazebo holds and hides a key that leads to, spoiler alerts. You'll read it all. It's again, my publications are always 100% preview, cover to cover. It's all these map assets that are going to come in real handy for you when you purchase the adventure, because you'll get that zip file full of all the tokens, the maps, all the pieces that go along with making this thing really hum smoothly. But there's a key that you can find there that you can use at this gazebo here. There's a trapdoor here inside this crypt as well. So basically anywhere from here to here is, like, this arc right here is important. So I want to try to have as much interesting directional stuff happening around these points, so they feel like they're where eye naturally wants to settle when you look at the map, which means less detail up in these corners, less detail down here, far less detail down here, less detail over here. So it'll be sort of like a zoom effect. You're just looking inside that area, and then we have less detail as we move further away from these central points. So that's the thought process behind that. So that is what I am attempting to, that is my endeavor. So we are endeavoring to achieve that. But for now, I need to finish. This grit. And a lot of this stuff doesn't need to be streamed, but you need to know all the steps I'm taking in the process before I go off stream. And I'll be on here for another couple hours, but to that point, I want to make sure y'all are understanding what it is that I'm doing. So when I walk away and I come back and more of the thing is complete, you know that, oh, this is just an extension of episode 72 or whatever. Like, he was talking about this in episode 67, and now he's back and he's done a shitload of work. But that's why I like doing these long-form streams, to be able to talk about the actual process that goes into it. And I'm noticing that, so I've got 116 people that are subscribed, and if you think this stuff is interesting, please subscribe. I have 777 hours accumulated so far. I need 4,000. So I'm approaching, after a year, I'm approaching a quarter of my view time that I need, and I've got 166 followers. So I'm about 17% of where I need to be as far as actual interested audience. So this is a very, very slow grind, this whole process of building the adventure content as well as building the audience here on YouTube. So if this is something that you're checking out and you're interested in cartography, we're doing a lot of it. If you're interested in illustration, I've done a lot of it. I've got multiple playlists showing different projects that I've worked on and different components and pieces of it, like walkthroughs, illustrations, a little bit of page layout, which I'll be doing a lot of once both this and the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration projects come back from editing. Once those are done, we'll be doing a lot of layout. We'll be doing a lot of layout work, and we'll be sharing the more creative pieces of it here on stream as well. But it's a long-form process, so the more folks, this is my plea for help, the more of y'all that check this thing out, that subscribe, the faster YouTube is going to get that people are actually interested in long-form design work. And it's a very unforgiving... The algorithm doesn't know what to do with me, so it doesn't do anything with me. By default, it just kind of ignores me. So I don't build momentum like a lot more flashy channels would. You have negative space around each important landmark. That gap plus texture on the landmark should create the focus you speak of, right? For the most part, yes. It's the contrast of it being a clean form amidst the grit around it that is compelling, but also, like, for example, this just this shape over here is less detailed per square than this stuff all throughout here. Like, this is an intense amount of topography for characters to navigate through. I mean, you can easily just walk along here and circle that hole, and walk along here and circle these holes, and use these flagstones to walk along here. But there's a lot of visual language happening in this block in particular, as opposed to this block here. Like, it's a much different, like, looking at them side by side, you can see that your eye is naturally, like, you're gonna rest. Your eye is going to rest out here, more so than it's going to rest in this area where there's so much grit happening. Now, when I put in the water, if we go to one of the previous, clean up my shit, and go back to looking at Region 3. So once I start putting the water in, it'll increase the eye quality of looking at this large pool that we have here in the middle, because we can use the same swirly language, which is interesting, bubbly, goopy blob. But you can also see that in this tunnel, when we get down to the bottom, like I've intensified the water language to be a lot more like, what is going on with this burbly water? Why is that so burbly? And that's actually that's actually by purpose to make you ask, what's up with all these bubbles? It's like, oh, there's tunnels that go underwater. Those bubbles make sense, but it's a more visually dense expression here than here. Like, this is a flow. This is the water line here, so it's blurbly here at the water line, but once you get past the water line, it starts to flow and smooth itself out, and then it starts to get a little choppy again, and now it's just a mess. Same thing up here with the crystals. In the area that they're camping, there's a very low crystal count because they're intentionally sweeping the hell out of there so it doesn't get in their food. But as you move further away towards the objectives that we want, it becomes more visually dense with wreckage and more crystal placement. But once you get through there in the underground passage, it again, the language intensifies because the crystals are far more prevalent in these underground passages than they are topside here, because it has more festering happening here further down underground, closer to where the underground lab where all this is originating from. So I'm attempting to build this density of language in the areas you want your characters to be spending their time. There's no sense having gorgeous topography over here in this corner if the characters aren't going to spend any time over there. But if they drift over here, I can put down another tile on your tabletop or on the virtual table that leads off screen here to push the eye towards, well, where is that leading off into the mists towards? Well, that goes to Act 4. Wait, that's the wrong one. Act 2, Season 4, which is the topside entrance here. the cobblestone pathway, there's 600 feet of cobblestone pathway that leads to here. It connects with this piece here, and now you're on this area, and this area is cleaned out because this is where the guards keep post. But this is obviously the most visually dense piece. That's the hole that you want the characters to go down. This is the stairway you want the characters to go down. The rest of the map is just yakety smackety Keystone cops running around with guards and potentially having conversations and stuff. And this corner is more dense visually than this down here, but it's less dense visually than this giant hole in the ground. The hole in the ground is the center of gravity in the piece. It's like, that is different from anything else that we've seen. What is going on here? There's a lot going on here. So it is visually interesting, but I can have other pieces around it with a lot of visual detail that maintain consistency with the other density in the other map, and I can use the same level of density amongst the gravestones, which will also use the same gray language. So all these color forms and textures will remain the same, but while I'm going through that process, I can attempt to think about what's the density of visual language that I'm placing near the points where I want the characters to go. If they start down here, the visual complexity will be like, there's going to be the rough. There's holes in the wall here, like this wall gets knocked down from the inside by undead crawling out. So there will start here with a little bit of visual complexity, as in this is a starting point for you. There's also a starting point over here that you can start with, that you can get through the wall at. But the default would be here and here, or if you're coming from another part of like region 3 or for whatever reason 4 up there, you'll end up here at the front door of this cobblestone pathway that leads into the crypt. So I'm going to have higher levels of language information here, or make the crypt stand out differently, and I can put a roof on it and then make the roof visually interesting. It's like, what's going on with that? And it'll just be a separate piece of paper that you cut out. In your 11 by 17 page, you'll have the top 3 inches up there. The roof will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm just going to be 8 tall, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 10 by 11. So I'm going to have a separate 11 by 17 page to feed through that has roofs on it. Roof here, roof, 5 roofs that I have to worry about. And then, of course, all the tokens for the undead and the soldiers and the NPCs that are running around inside of here. So the visual pieces will be there. But again, I can use the roofs of these things to increase the amount of language complexity in this area here, as opposed to over here or over here or over here. So anyway, that's me rambling about that. And environmental storytelling, I think is great. Thanks, Lindsay. It's I am very, very proud of this project. This is the first professional topography that I've produced so far, and I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled with it. So let's fill in these graves, and then we can go get creative someplace else. So bringing our pixel line down to 3. Make sure we maintain the thickness that we want here. I can clean up these scraggly edges a bit. Drop my brush to 2 pixels for the contours. It's subtle, but I hope it gets subconsciously picked up on that there is a line weight change, which should, the lower the line weight, the more detail, or either a detail for close-up work or less weight in the composition to indicate it's a subtle form of perspective distancing by having a lower line weight. It means that you have less detail available to you. So when you have high line weight with lower line weight inside of the high line weight, that means that the higher line weight is foreground and the lower pixel details are specifically like texture and form details inside of that object. But as you move away from the foreground, from like 4 pixels down to 3 pixels, down to 2 pixels, down to 1 pixels furthest away from the camera, that 1 pixel line may be like a tweed pattern on a close-up jacket, but at the distance it would be the walls to a building in the background, because as your eye pans away from the central image towards the background, the line weight in the background lessens so that it appears to be further away than objects with a higher front foreground line weight. That's comics. That's comic book 101. But it's so applicable to cartography as well. And that denser lines are denoting more interest in form, while thinner lines are denoting just details within that form. And so we want to make sure we're being specific about the line weight that we're using from piece to piece to make sure that we're presenting a consistent language that the eye can learn to rely on throughout the course of this project, so that while you're in context of working inside Crystals of Mabar, you know that that 4 pixel line weight is an indication that this is something that we need to maneuver around, that it can impose an obstruction. It can provide cover, for instance, as opposed to, oh, this is just visual language for description. It's not actual. It's not a barrier for bullets per se. I can't hide behind this in Call of Duty and shoot at you from it. It just looks cool. And that is the difference that we're attempting to define here with these different line weights. But I have realized that I am an idiot, because this map, oh no, oh, that's awesome. This is at 100 pixels. Oh my god. That's right, this is the right pixel count. I thought I had the wrong pixel count going into this, but I forgot I fixed it. Ah, that's so awesome. Alright, so we're looking super duck good. Like that line weight as a language, as a consistent language, only works if all the illustrations, all the maps are constructed with the same resolution. Otherwise, 4 pixels worth of line won't mean the same thing on another piece. It's actually really important to think about the scale of the project you're working on, and how much impact is the effort in defining these little subtleties, like how much of an impact is that going to have versus how much is it going to slow you down doing it. There is a monetary value to my time when it comes to this work, and as a content producer with PDFs, it is very low. This project's going to basically come down to basically 10 cents per hour is the production value over time that we have for it. It's a ridiculous amount of, like, if this is like a $13 adventure purchase, right? Then the amount of hours of content that we're going to have here on stream when it's done is going to be like 130 hours, which is effectively 10 cents per hour that we're producing here. Not to mention, we have an editor and a whole extra writer with Andy that are being paid for this project. So, unless you can sell a shitload of adventures, building adventures might not be an optimal path for you. But I'm building this kind of as a proof of concept, because the adventure creation toolkit that I want to publish for Eberron Adventures, specifically on DMsGuild, was built from those concepts. So, and I love this adventure. So as far as, like, I have to publish this thing, and I really have to put my heart into it, because it's like I said, it's a proof of concept. Like, and another reason to make everything 100% free preview on a project is that once I build that toolkit, I can actively use this adventure as a reference document and bundle this with that toolkit, so that you get the Crystals of Mabar and the Random Adventures of Eberron supplement bundled together, and I can then say, hey, look at page 37 of this document, and you'll see what we're talking about, the puzzle traps for the gazebo in the cemetery. And here's the sequence that goes into that. And you can follow that sequence, and you can follow that. Hopefully you'll be able to follow that along in the book. Like in this adventure, you can correlate how we're building puzzles in the adventure toolkit that we're building. So this becomes a reference document of the different, like, layering of plot hooks and how to funnel adventures from multiple options into eventually having only one option, which is engage the finale, which then pans out again into multiple solutions given whatever type of adventure hook you're using, which allows us to talk about adventure hooks and resources available in adventure hooks. Like, these are all essays that we can have about the adventure production process and demonstrate those examples, those values in this adventure. So that is the goal. We'll see how well we're able to actually dive into that space and produce the results that we're hoping that we can express, instead of this just being an intuitive project. We want to be able to demonstrate that it is methodical, and that method can be followed by other people that haven't thought about, like, how to self-contain and self-inform and self-reinforce your adventure in your campaigns. So we had to draw this thing out, and you literally draw it out. But yeah, we had to go through all that detail of just making sure that this thing is doing what we want it to do, while still being a fun adventure unto itself. In case you don't care about the creation process, you just want an adventure to fuck around with. It needs to be a good adventure unto itself for that. So, tall order. I don't do small projects. They're all just monster projects. Like, how the hell am I supposed to get this done? And like, this project has literally been a year. It has been a year since we started this. This is the season that we began in 2021, like November 2021. And here we are, about to spill into 2023. It's like, it's been nothing but patience from my crew that are absolutely on board with the project. We are all believers in it. It's a cool piece. It's fun as hell. The play testing was great. So it's as far, I mean, everything other than making money this project has been a success so far. We won't know how well it's actually received until we put it out there. But again, we're making it Eberron on purpose, because Eberron content, there needs to be more of it. There's a good Eberron community, and our editor is Stuart Braw, is very skilled in Eberron in general. So he's a smart guy to have on the project. He's really good about adding little flavor specs in there to make it just a little more Sharn or a little more Eberron than it would have been had he not been involved. So we're hopeful that the community at large enjoys what we're producing here and will be a supporter of the project, because we want to produce, well, anyway, I want to continue hiring out crews of people and take a more further and further back seat in the design process and focus more on this piece that we're doing right now, this topography, the cartography of adventures, book covers, illustrations, and promotion. That's kind of where I want to get at when I start like building a studio, that I have a good catalog of successful projects that are earning best-selling medals that kind of demonstrate that, you know, I have an audience that they purchase my stuff. Like virtually, I think I've got 2 books that aren't bestsellers yet. Otherwise, it's like 16 books that are. So I've got I've already have a blessedly strong track record that I can then just lean into further to help build leverage for new pieces that I put out. And the more my audience of people that like my work grows, then the easier it gets to hit those medals. And at some point, it's going to be strong enough, like we're talking about Kickstarters, that I can hire somebody on for 12 cents a word, you know, just to help me write these things. I don't want to write them. I want to get to work on the illustrations like right now. So you build this thing, I'll be a developing editor, but we'll hire a separate editor to work all that stuff. I can move into more developer and technical editing, as opposed to actually being involved in the nitty-gritty of typing text. And then we can, again, focus on what I always wanted to focus on, which is paying myself to be an artist. So a Kickstarter is the way, once I have my tribe built, Kickstarter will be a way for me to be able to, you know, get paid $300-400 per illustration, which is what I always dream I would be. I'd be at. Do a quarter page, get $300 for a quarter page, $1,200 for a page of art. That's internal work. I will be happy as a clam to be able to maintain that clip throughout an entire book. Like I can get paid $300 for a page of illustrations for a character art. I can get paid $700 for a page of 4 characters. But doing character commissions suck, because you're illustrating to order, and you are not the boss. And the art director that you've purchased, that is renting you, may not like the amount of effort that I put into a project for the amount of dollars that they want. It's like, I want a higher quality or I'm going to be unsatisfied. What the hell are you supposed to do about that? Like, you have to really define your parameters of, like, this is as far as I'm taking it. This is all you've been willing to purchase, so this is as far as the project goes. So if they try to get up on you about, hey, I want more, it's like, well, you didn't pay for more, and we outlined it with your signature here. We just hit your paywall. So, and sometimes I have people it's like, well, okay, that's fair, but I want more, so I'm willing to pay you X dollars amount more. And at that point, I can be like, well, do I have the bandwidth and the patience and appreciation to take on this project any further than it has already, or not? Hey, Hornetico, and that is an evaluation that an artist has to constantly hold themselves and their commission accountable for, because your time is incredibly valuable as a skilled producer of visual language. So if you're compromising the rules that you put in place to engage with you in the community, then you're just losing quality. You're losing respect for yourself in a very subtle manner, and you're losing the production hours that you assumed would be there for you to be able to push your overall game, and you're potentially building a sour relationship with somebody that you should really cut free sooner than later if they're making demands and not appreciating what they had signed up for and are recanting on it. There's a decent chance that they were always intending on doing that, and maybe using psychological weaponry and gaslighting to try to convince you that you owe them more than they signed off on owing. So that's a threat. That is a significant threat. And so the idea of me being my own art director and producing projects, being able to outsource the writing and editing to another team completely, and just having me focus on visual assets is something I occasionally want to engage with. I want to get to a point where maybe 1 out of 3 projects I'm involved in require me to do any writing at all. And that the other 2 out of 3 are just strictly doing visual assets like this. It may take me, 5 or 6 years to get to that point. Assuming 1D&D is stable. If 1D&D is not stable and everything's thrown up in the air, it'll be difficult to say where I land. But it would probably be on DTRPG or third-party content production. It's probably where I would end up landing. But I'm not worrying about that yet. It looks like I'm going to be small potatoes, generating less than $750,000 a year in the RPG industry, probably for a while, at least another few years. So as long as 1D&D has serviceable rules of engagement and the royalty that I retain don't get any worse. As long as I don't get worse, I can continue doing this stuff as is and complete all the projects that I always intended to have on DMsGuild. And then once all of the command and Eberron adventure content is produced, which will probably take me to the end of 2024 to do, honestly. I think I'm on a 2-year curve right now. And but once all that content is done, that gives me an opportunity to truly look up from all that work and assess, what's my next move. Do I want to take all these things like the Martial Powers book, the Color Mana Spellpulling Variant Rules books, the Spelljammer, Squads and Armies, Guilds and Kingdoms, all of that 500 pages worth of content, and do I want to distill that down into a separate 5-rank RPG system that allows you to pan in and out of character importance depending on what kind of a campaign it is that you're running, and build that into a separate D20 RPG system? Or do I want to stay focused on, say, building more Eberron adventures, or translating 2nd edition Spelljammer adventures using the new Combat and Explorations book that we've been producing? Like, there are a lot of paths that I can go with the content that I'm producing once it's produced. Like the Awakened Ship Sidekick is like such a tiny fraction of an idea that can be built out into its own product. Once Planescape drops and we integrate Planescape into the command system with, as far as like guilds and kingdoms and scaling infinite planes, to be able to, as a commander, run the Modron army march versus the Blood War versus Legions of Angels and Isgard. Like, once all that shit's locked down, I will have an infinite palette of just infinite space for me to build any kind of tools for Wizards of the Coast content that I want. And then it's just a matter of waiting for what's the next big drop you guys are throwing. Dark Sun, about goddamn time. So then let's start building out our Dark Sun stuff using all the command mechanics that we already have in place. The power systems that we have, we can adopt as psionics. We can use the guild system to express Templars. And we have all those components in place already. Now all I gotta do is just put Dark Sun IP branding on it and hire on some folks to say who's interested in playing. Like once like the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book, once that's done, I can combine that with the 5 color mana spell point variant rules book that I produced, and I can create a Theros and space campaign setting where, like Ulysses 3031, or I am playfully calling the product Spelljammer into the Nyx, which is the Nyx itself is the Nyx energy from the Theros afterlife is like the replacement astral space. Instead of traversing the astral sea, you're traversing the afterlife. The Nyx that's in Theros, and the gods are all in that space and stuff, and so that is a fun project that I can build out that uses the guild systems that we're making for the Guilds and Kingdoms book, the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book that's currently in edits, and the 5 color mana spell point variant rules. Those 3 books together can be combined to create Spelljammer into Nyx, where you're playing Theros in space, and I can create asteroid kingdoms out of the city-states and have little Nyx encounters where you're encountering like undead legions that are free-floating through the Nyx looking for Ulysses-type wayward souls that are drifting through eternity in your space caravel. And you know, like translate the Odysseys of Sinbad and stuff like that into Spelljammer, because we'll have the appropriate tools to do that at that point. Like that's a cool end of 2024 project to potentially get into. And I know of a lot of people that built, like the Odyssey anthology is full of people that built that kind of mentality already in those adventure supplements. Like those 3 whole books of adventures, 30 adventures, 30 islands, from level 1 to 20. Like we'd be able to retranslate all that stuff into the Spelljammer mechanics that we have now. So that would be like a very interesting project, but I gotta get the rest of this crap off my plate before I can actually do that. So pieces within pieces within pieces within pieces that we endeavor to produce in the time that I have left of being alive. So we'll see how much of it I actually get to achieve before I'm taken away. But it's a reason for me to keep fighting day to day, and that's for damn sure. There. Let's clean that up a bit. It was a little choppy over here. I'll probably end up going through here and doing all this detail cleanup work off camera, because it's kind of boring watching me rehash the same area over and over and over and over again while I look to stabilize the amount of detail. But this piece right here, this little block of ground, we can start tearing this apart. These cobblestones are very clean, which is something I do not want. So I'm going to chop that up a bit. I feel like I just got raided. Let's go look. Not so much. Chugga chugga. Chugga chugga. Sounds good. Alright, cool. Keep at it. Yeah, we're chopping up the flagstones that line the cemetery walls, just so we can have an ongoing texture language. And then we're using these 5-foot squares as our actual blocks. So wherever these squares are intercepting on the grid is where we're having texture breaks and grit for the actual flagstones themselves. So the grid becomes kind of actually present in the map environment. So your characters can actually refer to the grid as well as the players, like, because it's semi-present. If that makes sense. It's kind of like it's breaking the fourth wall a little bit, but I think it's useful on a map to be able to if you can get the actual 5-foot grid that you're using integrated into your map, so it looks like it's actually part of the environment the characters are in. It kind of removes the gamification of the map process itself. I feel like it makes the map part of the world culture. Like, no one is going to question that the gods consistently use grids in things that they create. Like, it is a naturally occurring phenomenon in this fantasy world space. It's just a part of the character's culture that, you know, Rick Sanchez would say is just proves that we're in a game, a simulated game. So, mad props to Rick and Morty. But yeah, that's like some of my quote unquote style. Which does not come from a lack of skill that I'm attempting to compensate for. It's when you're nodding at the fourth wall, you can either do it well or you can do it poorly. And it being so subtle, I feel it is a good break of the fourth wall, because it's something that we aren't directly calling attention to, but it exists inside of the environments. So if you look for it, you can find it, and then it becomes just a visual Easter egg that it doesn't literally. It's just decoration. It has no actual in-game impact at all. But it is something that if the player notices it, they can just catalog away. Oh yeah, that's a thing that they did. And hopefully they'll bring catalogs away. They did that on purpose and specifically aren't calling it out. That's a subtlety. There may be other subtleties that exist intentionally as well. And now people just want to study your work. They will actually want to look at, hey, what is actually going on inside of here? And that's when your map becomes art. When people are actually studying it for the techniques and for the subtle visual language that you're presenting inside of that space. A good world map is gorgeous art. I love staring at high detailed world maps that feel like the artist took that level of attention into the details of the project that we've been talking about here. So anyway, that's my $5 on the subject. Yeah, the music agrees, and they're like, what? If they hear that, the music literally went, wait, what? That's the internet calling me out on my bullshit in real time. But no, I'm sincere and passionate about all these comments that I have made today. So I stand behind this message. Vote for more shenanigans. It's the shenanigan party. We feel your pillar of adventure needs to have more experience. More rewards. You don't want to offer more experiences to the voters because they don't want to get attacked by goblins any more than you do. I mean, literally, any more. Like, no more goblins, please. Like, if your campaign slogan is no more goblins, you may have a winner. We'll have to see. I can't build that like that. This has to be inverted inward like this. And so that's the cobblestone that's being chewed up. So I want to keep that language legit for the cobblestone. So I can start filling in cobblestone shaped stuff. Hold on real quick. I'm gonna check. Gotta check my bits here. I feel something. Alright, we're golden. Here like that, and then piece like that, piece like that. Like I can get away cracks like that. I gotta. Where's my crack in the ground? Okay, the hole in the wall will be over here, so I can really screw up, like really cleave into stuff like here. Really just get after this. I don't want to touch the wall yet, but I'm building space in towards it. Like that'll all yeah, this will all fall through. I want to finish working this first though. Go. Chip, chop, chiree, chiroo, chirom. Cornerstone tipped over. Build into what we're doing, kind of like that. Smooth it all over with a water line. Which we have to break occasionally to maintain the three-dimensionality of these broken flagstones falling into it. Like that. brittle, straight and brittle. A lot of effort for a little corner is the opposite of what I was attempting to do. In minimizing visual language, I need to hold my shit accountable. Make sure I'm producing the results that I intended. So far, I am not following that edict. I am instead allowing myself to rabbit hole. But it does look really cool. So I can at least console myself in that it looks neat. But I need to make sure it's not detracting from the effort of pulling the eye in a particular direction. So I'm going to loop in a water line here, which is generally a lot smoother. And the actual outer limit, outer edge. So it's always a little rougher on the outer lines and a little smoother because of the water on the inner lines. I want to try to make it more liquidy, so it can retain that, again, that visual language, that dialogue, that this is different from the materials that are at the top of the incline. There's a lot more objects. A lot more objects and lines in general on this map than the other maps have been. So this is by far the most intense of all the maps that I believe we're going to have at all. Like, I think this is the most complicated one. And I'm really happy that we made it the third one that we're producing, because we've had all this opportunity to solidify the visual language of the different textures and colors that we're using for the different materials that are on this map that are already present in the other maps that we had shown off earlier today. So I believe I'm sequencing the production of content in the proper order. It seems to be panning out so far. So that is to say, very important. I think I'm going to use this as an opportunity to make an inlet like that, and then make a puddle here. Get rid of this. Like that. Like that. But zoom in here, yeah, it's sloppy as hell. So I should really be operating like at this 150% zoom range and around, yeah, like that. Yeah, like that. And since this is breaking into, see, there's supposed to be a flagstone lying there and one here, but this is cutting into that space, so that means I have to figure out how to have cobblestones breaking through this area here into the water line. That's where all these shapes are coming from. Hopefully that starts to connect intuitively for us. So I have to create breaks in the cobblestone like this that correspond with the shapes that are being broken up, falling in the water line, so that the audience, the characters and the DM can connect through color, because these flagstones will be different color than the dirt under the ground underneath them. Both up here as well as on the inclines will be different languages than what these flagstone plates are. So I'm hoping that is going to be sufficient to be able to fake it. Seven. Nope, 3. Oh my god, breaking my balls here. Knock it off, Muse. You're messing with me on purpose, girl. Yeah, I see what you're doing. There we go. Good. Continue to mosh up this exterior. Break off a piece like that, and it looks like this general shape here, so I'm maintaining that language we're talking about. Slides into the muck and it's sticking out. Thank you, Timely Timer. Tap that and keep it up. On screen, no. Hey. Once it says, rocks and cliffs are the southern song of cartography. Hell yeah, my bud. Truly. It's fun. It's so fun. Like expressing just that little three-dimensional tidbit inside of an otherwise two-dimensional play space. It's, yeah, it is a nod towards the quality of production. If it's done well. So far, our sweat and effort is converted into value for us. So we're very fortunate on that front. I feel like it's 8:20. Not even 8 yet. Nice. I'll keep this up for another hour maybe. We'll see if I get fatigued or not. I can only do this for so long. And then I gotta take a break, which means step off of stream for a while. So I'm going to push myself for another hour. Take a break, do some real life stuff around the home, and then jump back on in the afternoon for another 2 or 3 hours of stream. I still don't know what I'm doing this afternoon. I don't want to make any promises towards something. I don't want to tease anything that I'm not actually willing to work on. So we'll just say that let's say by 1 o'clock. That would be 5 hours from now? Jesus Christ. I'm going to be doing a lot of painting between now and 1 o'clock. Ah! So let's make it 12:30 instead. That's a pretty typical lunchtime stream for Phil. We'll do that. We'll finish this up in an hour, then we'll take a 3.5 hour break, and we'll come back at 12:30 p.m. PST to continue our endeavors. Regardless of whatever project that may be. It won't be a new project, although I have some new projects I want to work on. I cannot work on any new projects until my current set of assignments are complete. As much as I would love to dive into like 7 new projects right now, I have to just put them on a wish list of some days, and wait for the stuff that we're currently working on is complete, so that someday can become the present and we can get to work on it. Like spell point sorcerers, I want to do. I want to do a book about mimics as allies. I want to do a constructs book. The Modron army, of course. I want to do the Modron army and the Blood War as just a thing to keep in mind about. Like, you know, you can command these things if you want to using the system. So like a lot of stuff I want to do relies on the books we haven't published yet. So again, it's you gotta, first things first, you know, and everything else can wait. Like, what else am I doing that's so important right now? Eberron adventure, martial powers, spelljammer, combat, and exploration. Those are like the 3 things that are important to me right now that are on my workbench. And then once the Eberron Adventure is published, then the Eberron Adventure Toolkit slides forward on the workbench for it to finally be a reference document for me to be able to complete that project. Got pretty far along in it, but then I started creating examples over and over and over again just to illustrate a point I was trying to make. It was like, God, just to set up the example takes half a page of text just to make this point about, say, puzzles. I was like, why don't I just build an adventure that has all this shit in there, so I can just be like, hey, look at page 37, and here's comments about a puzzle, and what can we learn from this and extract from it, and then we extract and we learn from it. Like, so much better than me just building shitloads of hypothetical examples. Like, let's actually build an adventure to prove our frickin' point, so that we can speak to this with experience and actually have working models available for you to read along with. And maybe even if you like the adventure, buy it and run it along with this toolkit to build your own adventures with. Like, that's the dream. And I've been working on that toolkit for over 2 years. Off and on, I keep putting it down. It's like, we need to finish this adventure first. Once we do, this will be toot sweet. But like I said, I don't do small, simple little projects. I build huge. Like, the problem is I come up with an idea and then I start extrapolating how can this be used. And once it scales out to a scope, I'm like, oh, actually, that's a. If I simplify this and then add this in, this becomes a working structure that we can build different tools out of. And that's my problem with development, is that I keep building tools that have just ridiculous amounts of applications. So I'm like, oh, well, I got to build this toolkit because then I can talk about all these little subsystem optimization supplements to build off of it, inspired by the core theme of that tool set. And it's like, well, I got to build the tool set now, and that's big, so it's gonna take a while. But you know, I've done it once with the 5-color mana spell point variant rules. That's a flagship supplement concept. The Theurgy ability check casting is similar in that it's a scaling idea, but it was intentionally limited in scope and just peppered in little ideas about different campaign themes using different types of magic and like magic ability score simplicity, like how to play that out in different, like what does that look like in an apocalypse wasteland where some magic's been drained from the world. How do I do that as a high-tech mana ley line society? How can we use these ability check modifiers for spell casting, like skill checks. You know, that's what the whole thing is built out of. So different. But it's only like 30 pages. It's like a much smaller project. That if I want to, when I get bored, I can flesh out into broader and broader examples of how this theurgy system can work. But like, there's so many other interesting things I can do with other projects that more theurgy is kind of a low-hanging fruit right now. It's like, well, it's not high excitement. It's low yield, high excitement currently. Until I build it out more and like start just building kits, like theurgy kits. Then I can lean into it as, here's a thing. You should buy this bundle of stuff that are all self-informing rules to change the way that you use magic in your campaign for 5e. Like that is ultimately where the theurgy kit would go, but it's not a high priority at all right now. But it was fun to make. Alright, we're starting to wind our way around the rocks here. I don't know, man. Maybe we'll get back to that Light of Zaraxa's paint concept that we've been working on. That might be what we do this afternoon. Maybe not. Drawing rocks on the high end of the on the fun scale. What map features are on the boring end of the scale? Drawing rocks in the high end. I'd say building walls, straight lines. Recurring patterns. Actually, building the grid itself is pretty damn boring. It's a 2-pixel grid that I basically have to build 10 by like 100 by 100 pixel square boxes out of, so that it lines up properly. Like that's obnoxious. Just like fatiguing these things, like adding in little chip details like this, which is ultimately where we're going to end up going once we get to the outside layer. We've been building the inside first because it requires more effort than the outside, but I'm going to have to literally do this with every single one of these blocks, as well as the wall in between, like stuff like that. It's kind of fun, but it's not as fun. Like the swamp ground that we're working on is a higher degree of fun because it's got more dimensionality to it. I'm working with multiple textures and materials at the same time while looking at the large scope of what is it expressing versus zooming into how does it actually read when it's engaged with. This is a much more complicated process down over here as opposed to just taking chunks out of a wall. Like aging, I would say aging stuff. It's satisfying unto itself, but more as an ends to a means. It doesn't feel creative to to come over here and take chunks out of this like that. Like that doesn't feel creative unto itself, but it's a necessary piece of the overall work, so it has to be done. So in that sense, I can at least appreciate it. But it is, I mean, this is doing this. Far less exciting than having done this. On the same token, that outer wall piece, the aging texture doesn't take nearly as much attention as this interior stuff does. So I'm really working on the more complicated parts of the piece first, so that as fatigue sets in, I'm carrying less and less effort to complete the work, which is important. It's, again, that sequencing. It's the same reason why I do the book cover first, before proceeding with the rest of the visual components, like the map and all everything else. Because once I have the book cover in, that sets a limit to how much detail am I possibly willing to put into a piece if I get carried away. It can't exceed the quality of the cover. So it's smart to do that, and like I've spoken to this before, but if the book cover is the only thing that's preventing you from publishing your work, you're going to fucking hate that book cover. Every time you run into an accident, every time you realize you've got something's out of perspective, it always becomes a debate. It becomes a value-added analysis of, is me investing another 6 hours on this stupid little technical point that doesn't seem to have a lot of impact on the overall composition of the cover, but once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. Like, that's something that has to be addressed, and you always hate yourself for having to deal with that, because, like, I should have caught that. This should not have been a problem, but it is, because I was sloppy. And the reason why I'm sloppy? Fatigue. Project fatigue. I want out of this project, and this stupid book cover is the only thing that's keeping me moving on to something new that I can breathe life into. I can either set this project down, 90% done, walk away from it a while until my heart resets and I can give it the attention it deserves. I could compromise and leave it at a lower level of quality than I know that the composition can potentially reach, or I muscle through it and get the piece done to the point where I don't hate myself anymore, but I can't possibly work on it anymore. None of those are good solutions. Those are all losing value. And at that point, I'm just compromising on what am I willing to lose the most value for. If I do the book cover first, and then all these high detail assets like these maps and stuff next, by the time we actually get into building the book, all the cartography will be done, so we can just cut and paste chunks of the map and then just artistically drop them into the text sequence that we have inside of the actual document as part of the page layout process. And then we get to see how tightly or loosely do we want to set all the text together, which will tell us how many spot illustrations do we then need to place inside of the actual into the actual content of the book to flesh out the spaces and make it all feel balanced with the different map pieces that we have, with the different text blocks, the charts that we have, and then the actual page dressing and all the color identity that goes along with all of that. I have this little 1/8 page little block in the corner of the document that I could potentially put an illustration into, or I can leave it blank if I need breathing room. And as I look at each page and I compare them in that control panel style of them facing each other, like if I've got a blank spot like here, like a little 1/8 blank space that could fit in right here on this page here, compared to everything else that's on this document, do I need to leave that little spot open because it's empty, it's breathing room for your eye to take a rest during the control panel process? Or does it actually feel out of balance And dropping in some color language there will actually help balance the 2 pages. That's a process I get to go through artistically to then decide, well, okay, let's drop that page into Photoshop and fill in that with a doodle. What kind of a doodle do we want there? I don't know. What's being talked about on these 2 pages? Or specifically, what's being talked about in this column of text where this break is at? What little doodad can I drop into that little space that's going to help make this page feel like it always belonged together? And that is going to be super exciting because they're small little pieces. Some of them, like the tokens that we build, some of them may not take more than maybe 30 or 40 minutes to build each one of them. But if I've got 30 of them that are stacked up for the project to be completed, I can hammer through those a hell of a lot easier than I can for a whole freaking book cover that's going to take me 60 hours. So we're trying to start with our heaviest lift at the very beginning, where the excitement for the project is maximal, which was technically writing the damn thing. All 40,000 words of it. Crack all that shit out. Once that's out, the book cover, the most impressive visual aspect of the entire work. After that, the maps, the most visually, the most work-intensive aspect. These pieces are all done. And now the text comes back, and it gets easier and easier and easier for us to move the project further and further down the pipe until the last thing all we have to do is just publish it, and it's done. And we might maintain the same level of fatigue throughout the project, but the scale of and the magnitude of importance is going to continue to become smaller and smaller as it gets more and more difficult for us to pick up our pen to push the next piece of the project. Like, very intentionally going through that sequence in that particular order, because these are huge projects. Like, anything that's 100 pages, that's a big project. And not having a team of 10 people helping with you, super difficult, Herculean effort to produce these things, quite honestly. So I pride myself in the production, but I have to be incredibly self-aware of how much fatigue am I taking in a progress of producing something. So there, random rant there. Cheers. But hey, we're building the thing, right? All that speaky I just did, we now have a more complete piece over here. And it's probably more depth of detail than I had originally intended, but we'll see. And by feeding into this grid aesthetic, I can help build language for these flagstones that are all broken up and then are engaging with this crumbling ground underneath them. But I can open and close spaces by interacting with the grid lines more closely. Like here, I can kind of run like that and that. And then I can have a piece like this. Not too big though. Kind of like that. You know, these cobblestones need to have kind of a harder edge to them. I can't have too many gentle curves. Because flagstones don't curve, they crumble. They won't warp into an organic curved shape. They will just break and crumble into a bunch of small, equally uncompromising blocks. go through this process, I continue to trim down, trying to keep an eye on the perspective. Like if I have this line way out like this, then it's like this is the slope that you're dealing with. So I rebuilt the curve here to be tighter along the top edge, so the slope is more like this. And then here's your water line here, and then here's your cobblestones up here. Here's your lump that's flowing down into the ground like that. So that's a much more realistic type of interaction with the shore or the water line, considering the nature of these cobblestones, flagstones, whatever it is you want to call it. I can feel the fatigue. Can you hear it in my voice? Like I just dropped in power. Let's use that as an excuse to drink some more beverage. Compromise my principles. Skip the mellow. Song is zapping your power. Oh, maybe that's true. Good call, boss. Another reason why I'm sad that I can't listen to copyright music like this on stream. God, some Zeppelin and Sepultura in particular. I'm feeling Roots today. Roots and Chaos AD. Maybe some Pantera. That's stuff I can listen to off stream while I'm grinding through just line weights. Oh my god, look at all this grit. That is, God, what a nightmare. Clean up on aisle everyone. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Wow. The compromise is real. You know, I put half and half in my milk this morning, and it is just biting my stomach. I don't know. I don't know if I can continue to support creamer in my coffee. I usually don't. I typically drink it black, but I'm a holiday, so I wanted to give myself a kick. And I am concerned it's the wrong kind of kick. Here, I'm getting up because I gotta fix my chair. I've got a heating pad that I put on the back of my chair. And I've got a floor heater that I think we're warm enough now. I don't need it on anymore. I've got my robe and my pajama pants and my shirt. And I've got my pilot chair. And I've got a pillow that I put underneath my butt in my pilot chair. And my drink. Oh, and I've got my water. Oh. Everything feels better now. So I'm going to cut my coffee with some water. Yeah, a lot of this epidemic music is like super chill mode, which isn't always good. So much grit. Better. Thanks for asking, man. I think I got my sense of taste back after 3 days, so that was amazing. It was just long enough for me to appreciate not having it and appreciating getting it back suddenly. It's like it just like immediately, like it just suddenly disappeared, and then it just suddenly reappeared. Like I was taking, like I was biting something and like, there is absolutely zero flavor here. Where the hell am I? Oh yeah, COVID, no sense of taste. Wow, didn't expect that. And so I had just gotten used to not having a sense of smell and a sense of taste, and I'm shampooing my hair. I'm like, wow, this is a really sharp smell. I've got smell back. And then over the course of the next 24 hours, all my full range of taste and scent dropped back in. It's like, what a weird little glitch. My fatigue is doing better. I don't require NyQuil to get through a night of good sleep, although I was up weird hours last night. But that was because there's wounds being unraveled inside of my hips where I got hit by that truck. It's finally unspooling all of the tension that's been protecting the wound from having to remember that experience. Like when I got hit by that truck, I blacked out immediately. Like I have like some dream-like awareness memory of the skidding sound the 450 was making as it was slowing its descent downhill, like this screeching, it was laying down rubber. We went back a week later, and there was still just thick black lines on the highway where that guy realized I was walking out in front of him, and he just tossed on his brakes and just laid down 120 feet worth of track. And then he hit me, and then I got tossed into the ditch alongside the road. I'm sure that was terrifying to see for everyone involved, but for me, I had already checked out. But I have memories stored inside of my body of the accident. And recently, the knots in my right hip where the bumper hit me has been radiated, has been pulsing a heat pain. And I've become more and more aware of it, and I'm aware that it's not my body, it's the calcified damage, the old knots that are trying to loosen up and break up to get fed back into my body and recycle the energy. The memory has to be for me to release the scar tissue. It has to also release the memory, and so in my own philosophy about how the world works is it's not that the memory has to be released for the wound to heal, because that's how cellular memory works. To me, it reads more like this happened literally 25 years ago, and 25 years ago in October, actually. So we just passed 25 years, and I think the actual statement my body is trying to make is, you're strong enough now to remember how this feels, and that will allow us to release the cellular lock that's been holding that memory for you to visit when you're strong enough, which is now. So this is for my body. It's a celebration of being recognized, of all the effort that my body has been enduring to help me maintain a stable mental, emotional structure for me to be a human in society, and for me to find the help that I needed to get through the nightmares that I would have of things that I couldn't remember happening. And as I build a better relationship with the forgotten memory of my past, it's releasing these little bubbles of experiences that were trapped inside of all the different body damage that I have related to those events that I didn't have the strength to remember, which is where a lot of my weird philosophy about like how life actually works comes from. Because I have so many weird, like, protected instances of like, there's no reason for my body to protect me from this unless it has some sort of guiding intelligence that is making a judgment call of, this is too intense for him right now, hold this until he's stronger. Because I can feel my emotional tools as a human being have become stronger over the past 3 years of me learning how to explore these spaces inside my body, and how I can connect the emotional weight that goes with them through, trauma therapy and personal exploration, and being willing to feel the pain and the sensations of moving through my body. Like, these are all relationships we have to, as individuals, build with ourselves, so that our body can teach us the things that it's holding as treasure for us to discover when we're willing to delve into ourselves, as it were. So I have this radiating pain now in my hip, and it feels like a spider, like a crab that's trapped inside of a coral reef, and it's done the best it can to build a lair for itself, for it to exist in, and to feed off of things that incidentally came by, but it keeps molting and growing, and the space that it sits inside of my pelvis structure, it's now too cramped. The crab needs to grow larger, so it's starting to crack out of the bone structure that I have down there, and I can feel it like trying to push, like that's that throbbing heat as its carapace is growing for itself. And this is going to be at a point where that creature doesn't exist inside of me anymore. That it will eventually, between me and it, will figure out how to release it from the crab cage that has been trapped inside it for 25 years. It's growing strong enough that it can leverage its way out of its binding, and I am its binding. So I am feeling it pushing through my body to be able to escape to wherever it is that it feels it's supposed to escape to, which is a very weird sense. Like, even right now, I can feel my pelvis, like my tailbone, the coccyx. I can feel it's being pushed. Like, I can feel it's being pushed away from the rest of my body. Like the crab is trying to find a way to shit itself out of my body spiritually, which is a nasty experience. But there's been so many recent experiences of my hips popping in ways that they've never popped in 20 years. Because as this stuff calcified over time, it kind of locked down, and it stored all sorts of different emotional, related emotional pain of that. It honestly is kind of hard to express unless you're blind. Like the terror of not knowing what's going on with the street light. Or is this street actually, is that a 5-legged bear that's actually coming at me on the street? Oh no, it's just a guy with a large dog that's on a run. Like, people with severe visual limitations kind of have to make up a lot of reality as we go along, as it is, because until we get close enough to get actual accurate visual information, we're guessing at half the things that are actually going on around us. Beard hair. And when you make a mistake, you're punished for it. And I've been punished by falling off of cliffs, being hit by a truck, falling down stairs, spraining both of my ankles, like a combined 12 times, not being able to tell the color of my skin if there's an infection or not, which has gotten me staph infections and into the hospital before. Like, there's weird risks that a human being has to endure when they have limited visual capability. Like being blind is no joke for a human at all. And I'm fortunate to have only a limited blindness, that I just don't have color, and I have to walk up to anything I want to zoom in on, like physically walk up to it, because my eyes can't zoom. Like I don't have depth perception, and I'm locked at whatever resolution I'm at. So if I want to see what's here, I have to bring my face to it to see it more clearly. It's very weird machinery. It's very odd rules to force a creature in this century to live through. But it's the rules of the game that I got. So like this is my random flaw that I got handed when I was building my character sheet. It's like I need to squeeze in some extra feats to be this awesome. So what flaws can we take? It's like 21st century Partial blindness. Like, that shouldn't be so bad. There's plenty of societal support to be able to back up that kind of a build, especially if we spec into scholastic and theoretical stuff, where it's more mental stats than physical stats. I should be able to get away with it. Oof, boy, still a challenge. Still a huge challenge. Yes, I'm molting. I am literally molting right now. That is an accurate statement. That crab is just trying to move inside of my body. There's a pipe that moves through your body, and it's an energy channel that accumulates energy in this torus. A torus, if you're not familiar, is this donut structure where energy courses in and out like this. Like it'll channel out and then it'll channel in. So you're rotating this energy in this tunnel that rotates around like this. But the tunnel is this circle, this donut effect. So this hollow space is where just energy is cycling around it. Like that. It's on a circuit, so it's just continuously. That's how a torus works. Torus, torus, and so a human being like this, we have a torus. Like this. So the energy, I'm finding myself wanting to create a new layer, so we're going to do that. Tangent. So there's a shaft of energy that comes through us, and when it hits, it disperses like this and channels around us. And then it enters through our feet chakra, our base, and then it channels through us and then goes back up this channel to our higher ascended selves. And then the energy cycles up here, is restored, and then channels back down to us, goes around the torus, and then funnels back through us. And while we're funneling energy through us, it purifies our emotions and grabs any cellular debris that's ready to be released. And my main node right now is this crab that's trapped down here in this in my hips, and that's the creative center, by the way. So as I cycle energy through, it cracks this space open just a little bit more for the crustacean to release. And so as the energy comes up through the body, a lot of the information, like the experiential stuff, gets piped up to your higher self that's running the show from afar. But some of it gets cycled back into the torus as well, as your own battery supply to feed yourself emotions and to feed yourself your consistent experience. But information is being piped up into the channel of light, and the channel of light is piping information down to then blend into the cycle of the torus with you. So you're being fed both your own energy for self-reflection and to cycle through an emotional trap that, like, I can't get over how badly I treated my friend the other day. I won't forgive myself of that. So I keep cycling the memory of that betrayal that I was a part of over and over again inside of me. And every time it loops through, it grabs another piece, another piece, another piece, another piece. Here's where different points of betrayal lie inside my energy structure as pain points. And as the torus processes those things out, those spaces open up as just open space that can then be fed new strains of energy that are more purified, that we can then send back to our source as task complete. We've cycled through this process of betrayal. We know how it feels. We know how it feels to give it out to people. We know how it feels to receive it. And if we're done with the betrayal lesson, I would hope never to betray anyone again. But for me to do that, I now have to receive higher quality energy from source, so that the options, the intuitions I have about what's saying to people or decisions to make in the future will guide away from a path of betrayal, that they'll have a higher path of integrity. and that you'll say what you mean, and that people will receive that information so they understand where you're coming from. So when you take that action, it could be the same action you would have taken 5 months ago, but now that you're not cycling betrayal and you don't have these pockets of compromising people or sacrificing people for your own gain, the action that you take isn't felt as a betrayal. It's now just something understood. This is who Phil is, and this is who Bob is. And when Phil and Bob interact with each other, Phil ends up ahead in that interaction, because Phil doesn't know this, but on Bob's end, he's been cycling new energy through that allows him to be more generous with his time. So when Phil says he's going to do something and then he ends up doing something different, that chaos isn't looked at as a betrayal by Bob. Now Bob is recognizing, hey, shit happens and things change, and Phil didn't necessarily have control over that decision. So I don't feel betrayed by Phil now. I am just able to accept that Phil's trapped up in the machinery as much as everyone else is, and sometimes we have to make changes that we didn't expect to make. But that is all a process. It's not these events were set up and these are the lessons that we learn. These are examples of how the energy inside of us is changing over time to allow us to have more emotionally mature interactions with people around us that themselves are trying to check things off of their list of things to clear inside of their body. So our higher selves get together. It's like, we should have a play date where I'm going to piss you off at a supermarket and you won't know who I am, but we're going to piss each other off really badly about our carts continuing to bump into each other or something, and then we're going to have like some terse words. And those terse words, the only reason we're doing that is because that guy over there needs to have an opportunity to see from the outside small, little, nitpicky shit about people bumping into each other flares into an argument that he can then relate to how he's been exploding at his daughter lately. He didn't know that the things he says to his daughter are having these emotional impacts on her. But in this flash of inspiration, where he sees complete strangers having an oddly similarly structured argument between each other about who belongs where in this line right now, but the feeling is identical about curfew and how he grounded her, and how honestly it wasn't really fair that he wasn't willing to listen to the exceptions that come along in life that may have forced her to be late for curfew. And he's such a militant asshole from his upbringing that if you're late, you have to sleep in the car. I won't let you into the home. And that's been carrying a very low level of guilt energy, because I feel less and less safe about the community. Yet I'm forcing my daughter to sleep out on the street tonight because she couldn't get in by 12 o'clock. What kind of a monster am I? And that got triggered because two people I don't know are accidentally bumping their carts and getting into an argument at Safeway because it's Christmas and everyone needs to shop right now. But for whatever reason, that sequence fed this energy to me that says, God, I need to start letting my daughter back in at night. Regardless of what my military training says and what kind of a father I think I'm supposed to be to instill these harsh lessons into my children like I got. If I can purge myself of that pain, maybe I can understand how scared she is and how she wants to be home on time, but she's having difficulties. And when she's crying at me, she's actually crying. She's not trying to bullshit me. Like, this isn't me, but I know people that have had these interactions. This is a real life story that I've been privy to decades ago. But this was a girl I knew who got trapped out of her home. She had to lock her car in her shitty little Camry because her father wouldn't let her in at night. Man, but that's how the machinery plays. It's we trigger off of each other to have these weird unrelated events that cause something inside of us to bounce. It's like, wait a second, this is an analogy, and when you're ready to have the information fed to you, it's not like you can fail. It's just fed to you, and you evolve. You have your own. You molt, as it were. So you become a more evolved person that's capable of greater scales of kindness and compassion and listening when you didn't have the ability before. So sorry, I got a little worked up there for a minute, but that I think about her occasionally, and I hope she's doing well. And I try not to name drop too much, but you know who you are, gal, and I love you. Anyway, sorry, that dived a lot deeper than I expected it to, but that's that's what the muse does sometimes. That's where she wants to go. That's I think why she got onto this gig in the first place. It's like I can talk about some cool shit. Because Phil's brain's gonna blank out at some point while he's pushing pixels, and I can slip in and say things that Phil didn't expect to say today. And so I keep talking about being as much of a witness in these conversations as you are. I didn't know I was going to talk about that just now. Which is a little goofy, I know, but that's what lets me do the things that I do. So we're working. So the topography here, the materials that we're working with is we have flagstones along this line here, but we have this pit opening up that's corroding this wall. So we have to resolve the incline that we have, like at this kind of an angle leading down into this pit here. But if we do it accurately, it'd be like this, but the flagstones are supposed to extend to this edge here, and then there would be dirt here, and then you've got a grave that would be here. But all of this has been dug out in this area right here. That's what we're looking at the side view of. So when we tear down all this hill, what happens to these flagstones? They slide down into the water. So you have this flagstone sitting here on top of this soil here that's built up, and there could be other small fragments of broken cobblestone that are sitting here as well. But I have to translate this side view into this top view and get the point across, which is like what we've been doing over here with like these little blocks down here that I've chipped off of this here. Like that, but here's the actual soil line. So we'll do soil texture inside here, and we'll do flagstone texture up here. And here's the inclines, and this will be a flagstone texture here on top of this embankment texture that we have. So we have cobblestone texture that we already worked out on the other maps. We have soil texture that we worked on the other maps, and we have inclines, water bank, embankments. That has a different language as well. So we have 1, 2, 3 different types of texture and color language. And then we got the water. So we got water, embankment, soil, cobblestones. Those 4 pieces that are sitting inside this 30 pixels worth of space here. We're going to jump from 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of texture in this small little band right here. So that's going to be intense. And this is supposed to be like a more boring. This is supposed to be a boring part of the map, but it keeps getting more and more intense as we dive into it. So it's exciting. This is the work. This is the work we do. It's fun. So we'll build a piece like that. That feels accurate. So hey, look, Smut's shown up. Thank you, Smut. Let's destroy you promptly. I am my own moderator. Hello. I will moderate you today. And we'll go with remove. And let's go with report as Smut. Wait, what is this? VRT Girls Chat. Yeah, that's Smut. Sorry, girl, you gotta go. We do not support human trafficking here. And until you can prove your dancing girls are not slaves, we will not tolerate your presence. There. Scoot that over a little. The textures and the techniques you've resolved on the other maps are solid and will indeed look great on this map. Yeah, they will. Yeah, they will. Hey, why are you still here? Get... Narp. Huh. Alright, well. The link is dead, so that's... Ugh, I can't get it off my screen. I deleted it in the chat, but this chat window doesn't resolve it, so that's weird. I guess I'll try to destroy these things in the chat window over here in the future. I figured just going to the source here would be the most efficient way to do that, but apparently I am mistaken. There. That is appreciated. We appreciate that. There we go. Alright, thanks for helping resolve that. Yeah, I keep that questionable business model off of the screen. I'm all about girls doing whatever it is that girls want to do. I just want to make sure they're actually making the decision for themselves before they do it. And then we can start having a conversation about, is it actually a good idea or not? Like, if it's your idea, it's your idea, and it's your mistake to make. But if you're being handed life decisions that are beyond your capacity to resolve, that is technically abuse. So I'm really questionable about different entertainment forms that are being presented to us as feminization, feminist movement, and it's my body, my choice. It's like, well, just want to make sure it's your choice. I don't have any problem with you doing whatever it is that you want, as long as you want to do it. Prove to me this is what you want to do. And I will be willing to believe you. But I don't want to listen to that guy. I don't care what that guy has to say about your feelings. I want to hear it from you. Anyway. Again, that's just me. That's just how I operate. Tap. Keep it up. Do it like that. Do it like that. Digging this music. I like guitar anyway. one of my good high school friends. He passed away, but he was an amazing classical guitarist. He was like doing, he would do a recital, and there'd be 300 people at the recital just listening to him play Spanish guitar. It's just, God, it was so good. It was so fun hanging out with him. I used to play D&D with him and his brothers. But and this was back in high school, so like when he turned 16, he got a truck, and he was happy to drive me around because I can't drive because of my vision. So we had a mutually beneficial relationship where if I needed to go someplace, it was an excuse for him to get the hell away from all the kids in his family, so he can have time to himself for a little while, and then he'd pick me up and we'd go do whatever it is, and then he had time with a friend to do what he wanted, and then he could just avoid his family for however long he needed. Like, this was the 90s. It's like there was no cell phones, so like once he's out the door, he is gone until he decides to come back again. So we had a very mutually beneficial relationship like that, and he would come once he got a car. He'd come over to my place a lot. Like, I'd go to his place when we were going to play D&D because he had a bunch of brothers, and we had just a ready to go. They all wanted to play D&D with their older brother, so it was easy for us to throw a game together. And those kids got actually pretty damn good at playing D&D 2nd edition, like clever, outside of the box thinkers. And but when he wanted to get the hell away from all of them, he'd come over to my house and just bring his guitar, and he would just play chords for hours while, like, he'd be sitting in a chair, and I lived in the basement, and we had a fireplace down there, and I had a big bed and stuff. So I would just flop out on the bed with an art pad and just fill pages with sketch art while he would sit on the couch across from me, and he would just hammer out chords and grow out his nails and strengthen his picks. And just work chords for hours. And I'd fill pages of art. He would fill the room with sound, and we'd just talk about shit. And I'd be like, "That's a really cool sequence, Kyle. What is that?" And he would, like, "Oh, I took that from Black Sabbath Fluff, and then I modified this other thing I heard from Moody Blues on top of it to build this thing." And it's like, "Hey, that's awesome." It's like, "Well, I'll play with it then." And you're like, "What are you working on?" And it's like, I'd show him, some illustrations of ogres. It's like, I'm trying to lock down ogre language, like, how do they look and stuff. He's like, "I think it should be more brutish. Why don't you try this permutation?" It's like we would build off of each other that way. And God, what a great guy. He left really early from this world. But he played hard, so he probably cleared his docket a lot faster than I reckoned he probably could. And so he exited out and reset, and I hope to see him on the other side. But yeah, I grew a great appreciation for how peaceful classical guitar is. Regardless of how amazing the chords themselves are, the emotional energy it carries for me is safe creative space. Moving messages, text scroll for the great series of books, all with full previews. Ah! I'm glad you appreciated the books. It was very kind of you to purchase some of them. That's very, very kind of you. Like I said, I make them available for people to read so that they can decide for themselves if they want to throw money at it, like throw money at me to encourage me to do more stuff, or just to have the books because they're things they want to read, or just like look at the pictures or whatever. It's all a shitload of custom art in there. Like that spell point bundle that I have down below. This is like 100 unique illustrations in there, and most of them are not stock art. Like I haven't made them available for stock art yet. I've got a backlog of like maybe 180 pictures of varying quality that I've used in my books that I could theoretically put out as stock art if I wanted to invest the time in doing all the packaging and cleaning up some of the more like not to be punny, sketchy illustrations that are in there. Some of them are pretty sketchy, and I have a problem with charging people for them. So most of them I need to do some form of cleanup before I'd be comfortable putting them out as a stock art sale. But when I actually get to that process, I can like do what a lot of other stock artists do, and that I can put them on Patreon, and then like you know $1 equals 1 point, and when you get 5 points, you can get a quarter-page illustration from this catalog of 300 illustrations. Go for it. And then, you know, as long as you remain subscribed to my Patreon, you have unlimited license use for these books, and all you gotta do is maintain at least $1 a month with me, and you have an open license to use whatever illustrations you grab from with your credit budget to put in as many books as you want. I don't care. Like that is how I want to structure my stock art once I get there, but I am not there yet. That's more of a, well, that's work. That's a job, and I refuse to make this a job until the money I'm making doing illustrations on the side like this is significant enough for me to look at it sidewise and say, do I want to drop part-time to my, well, I have a full 40-hour-a-week job right now. If I ever get to the point where I'm generating enough income that I can realistically say, you know, instead of this just being beer and weed money, it becomes, this is a quarter of my income. So once I get to a place where illustration and game design is 25% of my annual income, I can then start looking at trimming 25% of my hours out of my day job, so I can still get, you know, what little medical benefits Americans get by having a boss. You can still get them at 30 hours. So in the next 5 years, I anticipate dropping myself down to a 30-hour work week at my day job, and opening up a lot more space in my day to just do more of this. Like those 10 hours I'm going to be freeing up in my work week by dropping to part-time my day job, I can then invest in stock art production, because I have surrendered a day job to have more freedom of time to develop my own job. And the thing I hate about doing illustration creative stuff the most is the administrative product production, packaging, so I can actually sell something, which will ultimately give me more money to do more of it. But until I carve out the space to make the time, I won't do it, because as long as this is just hobby money for me to, you know, to throw at parties, then I don't care what's going on. But as soon as I start taking it seriously as a job, I lose something from the creative side of it. So I have to be very delicate about how I'm siloing my time in the creative space versus the administrative space, which is why I haven't launched a full-time Patreon or a full-time Discord for myself, because I'm already a moderator at Taryn's Indestructible Sphere, and that's time intensive. It is being a community representative and being an advocate of fairness and you know, fair play among your amongst your co-participants. Just that added level of moderator authority that I have forces me to think about how much commitment of administration it is to run an actual like the MCDM Discord with its 7,000 participants or whatever. It's that's daunting for a guy like me. Like, I would have to pay moderators to do that stuff, which means I need successful Kickstarter projects that are, you know, generating $200,000-$300,000 per book for me to be able to put staff on board to help me do all of the nuts and bolts, so I don't get ground out of creative space into administrative space. And once you're stuck in administration, you are no longer creating anything. And now I'm just grinding slowly to a stop, and all of the money will dry up because the creativity isn't there to reinforce further engagement. So if you start your business journey too soon, you actually run out of stuff to be businessful about. You kill your own pipeline. So you have to build a strong pipeline first to establish sacred space for you to be able to actually build the creative thing, and to have enough bandwidth in your day to give it the time it needs without feeling crunched on, oh man, what am I producing today? And is this going to help me hit my goals? You can't be thinking about goals in the creative process. You can, like I'm structured, like the way I'm structuring my workflow that I was describing earlier about working from more complicated stuff to more basic stuff, so that the level of fatigue doesn't increase as my fatigue increases, so I can maintain the same clip. But that is part of the creative process. That's not actual business administrative stuff we're talking about. That would be more like, hey, I've got 30 illustrations I need to package up into individual sales. That will be $1.50 a piece. So at the end of this, I'll have $45 worth of product I'm pumping out into the community, and I'll probably sell 3 or 4 of them a month. And then 5 years from now, I'll be selling like 30 or 40 of them a month. You know, like that is a terribly slow grind. And that's just packaging, which has zero creativity involved with it, unless I start getting punch drunk on the text that I put on the iOS page. You know, like, hey, I'm feeling a little drunk with power, so here's how I'm going to describe this illustration, and that's about as far as I can get creatively with it. Because the rest of it is just like, you know, SKU number and backlinks to my social media page, and finding the links to the YouTube channel where I illustrated this picture in the first place, to have that as a, hey, this is me illustrating stuff, come tag along and sing a song with me as I do these things. Like, this is all part of that administrative process that I just, like, you can see, like, I've been ear tagging different time stamps in these streams that I do, with the idea that I could peel these things out and build shorts out of them, like YouTube shorts. But that editing process is administrative duties, and it is absolutely not creative. Me talking about this shit was creative. Me bundling it up as an edited, hey, here's Phil talking for a minute, pay attention to me. Like, that is all business, and I can't do that right now. I do not have the bandwidth to produce these books and to properly administrate them. Once I either lessen my workload or expand my hours of business to be working for me, like I was just talking about, this isn't a serious business yet, and it won't, and it just simply can't be until I invest the administration hours each week necessary for it to be a legitimate business. So, anyway, that's a quick skinny there. This is me being a home brewer, a small scale personal producer. It is not a business model. It is not. There is no corporate strategy here. None of that stuff. I don't even have a freaking website, for God's sake, because I don't want to spend the time building those tools, because I have so much stuff I need to create. Like, this is what the muse is burning in my head. This is what's being punched through my heart until it's done. Frickin' build this thing. I don't have time. I don't have time to take the Spelljammer tokens and release them one at a time on Roll20 for 25 cents a piece. Like, I ain't got time for that. Get out of here, you scallywag. Anyway. But I will. One of the goals is to get to that point, and to get to a point that it won't drive me crazy when I make that decision. That is my guiding principle on that. Like, when I get into this stuff, it cannot drive me crazy. it needs to be a relaxing process, something that I feel appreciation for. Like every word I type into a product description page for selling something online, that needs to be an act of celebration and appreciation for me to be able to sustain it long term. So, and I'm not there yet. You can hear it in my voice. Not a lot of appreciation for that process yet. So, it's pending. But I also recognize it's holding me back. I could probably get to that part-time status at my day job faster if I took this more professionally. So it's kind of a chicken-egg situation of where am I going to flinch first? And I honestly don't know. But I like the current arrangement. I like being able to fly casually because it lets me create incredible tools. So I think honestly, once all the tools are built and I'm released from the drive to get them out there, because once they're out there, then I can start producing smaller tear out pieces, little concepts that build off of that won't be nearly as intensive. That'll be more of a flight of fancy that I can incorporate into a larger business strategy. I think that's where my path lies, but there's about 300 pages worth of content between there and here. We just gotta keep putting in the hours. So here's me grinding out another flagstone falling into the water. That's the next step in our sequence. Oops, twice. Hey, it's 9 o'clock. I think I'm gonna finish. I only have this little patch here to finish, and then I can get rid of this, get rid of this, and get rid of this. That should stay, but this can go, and this can go, and this can go. Got a large pool here. Nice blank spot to rest your eye over here. Rest your eye over here. Have it all flow, like have all this water flow in this direction to try to point you towards this area over here, or to point you towards this area over here. guide you back to the center of the map. But I have enough bandwidth left in me right now to finish this wall. So we'll finish this wall, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll be back in a few hours. And still don't know what I'm going to work on. Maybe Light of Zaraxis. Maybe we'll work on the Zaraxis Citadel a little bit more. The underbelly, the forest of the Citadel structure. I think that's what we're going to end up working on, because that is another large piece that needs time and attention to build out. But I'm pleased with the progress so far. It's moving pretty quickly, so we're gonna keep up. Yeah, we're gonna keep up with that. More Zaraxis cartography today. I was thinking maybe I might have some variety between different, like not doing cartography, doing something different. But tomorrow is Thursday, and Thursday night is fill time. So I'm doing a lot of streaming right now on this Eberron. Normally Thursday night would be Eberron, and then the mornings are either Eberron or Spelljammer. But I have so much capacity right now during the week off that I have, that I don't have to. Oh my god, I'm using 1 pixel. No wonder that's been driving me crazy. Super sketch, literally. So I've been putting in so much time in building these assets out during this week already that I feel like I can treat myself and do something different Thursday night, tomorrow night, that isn't Eberron or Spelljammer. I think I'm going to do Martial Powers tomorrow night. So I didn't have the opportunity to do it earlier this week, because of the holiday that I had committed to being with my gal. But next Monday, I don't have that limitation, but I have the day off. I have Monday off, so I can do an extended Martial Powers Monday and a long lunch stream, and we're going to rebuild. We're going to build subclasses using the power systems that we have. So like selecting different martial powers to express what the arcane archer is supposed to be, as opposed to like making an arcane archer. You know, like you can have an arcane archer without having to select the arcane archer character, subclass. You can select the martial powers, like the power champion for the fighter, or a ranger, and then just kit into martial powers that say I am an arcane archer as a result of me being able to do all of these things. Witness my power. We can flesh that out, and so that'll be Monday next week. But I have revisions, mechanical revisions I have to make between now and Monday for me to be on course with what I said I'd have ready to go when we start that project on Monday. And I think I will be investing time to do so tomorrow night on Thursday night stream, and then maybe even some on Saturday, on my Saturday stream. Because the Martial Powers book is getting incredibly close to done. But we have some pretty significant mechanical changes that we need that I have the opportunity to talk about when we visit the project tomorrow night. So that will be, tomorrow night will be Martial Powers. Today, this afternoon, will be more Citadel of Light from Light of Zaraxis, the map, the underbelly map conversion. I haven't seen anyone do the bottom of the Light of Zaraxis as stock art yet, so that is another example of a good reason why you want to pick up the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book that I'm building, because that full map, 50-foot scale square map, 1 mile by 1 mile, which is the size of the Citadel, as stated in the book, Light of Zaraxis itself, in the actual adventure raw. So we're using actual raw mechanical information from the book to better use than what WotC thought they could use that content for. So patting ourselves on the back while we're breaking our arm. Don't mind me. I mean, if there is somebody out there that drew the underbelly of the Citadel of Light, more power to you, because we need it. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing it, because as far as I know, it doesn't exist. And it should, because people like me like to think about, well, what happens if we land on the underbelly? Like, I have an armada. What if I have a shitload of ships attack frontward, and we sneak on the underbelly, and then start point crawling, doing an urban point crawl from where we land to where we end up needing to be. And then as an extension piece later on, we can actually build a mega dungeon inside the Light of Zoraxis, inside the Citadel, for the characters to crawl through on their way to the temple. So, that's fun. That is classified as raw fun by the Kill Fear Consortium. That would be my terrorist organization. If I was full, oh, I may have just demonetized myself. Sad. Anyway, if I were, if I wanted to create a Cobra type organization to dominate the world, I would call it the Kill Fear Consortium, and I would be, my code name would be Kill Fearney. That was my name in Mafia Wars. I was Kill Fearney. I had a mafia of 5,000 players. We had that, like, our guild was 5,000. I think when we ended, it had 7,500 people in it. It was huge. I had to retire from that. It was destroying my life. But it was fun, man. Those Zynga games back in the early days of Farmville, and of course Mafia Wars and Street Racer, like all those Zynga token games, they were fun. They weren't fun because the games themselves were fun. They were fun because they were math based, and it was the user interface that they used on the Facebook application was sloppy. So like you could jam a signal by clicking, like you could click one button super fast, like as fast as you could possibly click it. And by the time their server would recognize that we should drain a resource, it gifts you the resource first. It gifts you the thing first, and then it takes your payment or resource second. So if you jam quick button, you could get 4 or 5 rewards and only pay for it once. So once I realized that's something you could do, I could go through the game and find the most efficient exploits to use that mechanic on. And whenever they would release a new city for your mafia, I would break down the sequence of tasks to perform in the most efficient, using this break button technique to gather more resources than you should have been. And as a result of it, we built a clan of 7,500 players that didn't want to spend credit card money to be able to run around and inside this game and complete all the milestones, like completing the city and stuff that should take months. We could grind it down to like 2 days by using this quick click system. And we grew, and it was called Soldiers of Peace, and we grew at an incredible clip. And it got to the point where I just couldn't keep track of people anymore. Like my sphere of 250 blew out to 7,500 in the course of a couple of months, and so I had to insulate myself with a close circle of people that had the smarts to understand what I was attempting to do and the motivation to help me execute it. Because they were all about, yeah, let's build a free to play system for this game and take on people that steal, that use stolen credit card information to get free points for their character, and so they're running around like they're big shots, but they're really just using stolen credit card information to purchase resources through third-party out-of-country apps. And it was obvious, when I checked it out, it was so obviously that it was so obvious, because I worked in credit card fraud, so I can tell when something, it's just been trained into me. This is iffy. This is safe. This is iffy. This seems iffy, but it's actually legal. This seems legal, but it's actually not. Like I got like professional industry training in picking that kind of crap out. So when I saw what these third-party providers were offering to play these Zynga games, it's like no, that's all. The people that are doing that have no ethics, so we have to beat them at their own game. So let's build mafia characters that can take on these behemoth criminals and beat them up, and make them feel stupid for having spent $10,000 on a credit card on a fucking game. $10,000 some of these people had spent. Some of it was actually their own money. Some of it was legitimately stolen money. It's like, wow, you people are something special. Let's crush you. Let's crush you under an army of freebie players that only want to make you feel bad about your life decisions. Go. I did that for maybe 2 years. It was fun. And then Zynga started realizing that this quick click thing, and they locked down the code, so it had a slower server ping. So we weren't able to exploit that anymore, and it just the clan continued on, but I stepped down from being the guild master on that at that point. It's like, well, there's no mysteries to solve at this point in the game. They fixed all the bugs. So my ability to guide you to free gameplay has now been eroded, and at this point it's just cult of personality. So I'm gonna get out of here and do something different, where I can make a difference. And I said later, and I'll let it go. And other people took over in my absence, and I think it kept along for a while. But I think Mafia Wars in general is eroded to the point where it's a non-game at this point. I don't think anyone's actually spending any time inside Mafia Wars anymore. But it was the shiz night in like 2006. It was dominant. But anyway, that's my Zynga clan story. It was fun. I would be talking to people at night, like on my phone, like, hey, give me a call, I'll walk you through this thing. Like I'd literally walk them through how to play the game. Like, now all I gotta do is like use this button, and this button, and this sequence, and just do that as often as you need resources. And we're gonna fight some of these credit card guys on Thursday. So show up, stock up on stamina so that you can take a lot of hits, and you can refresh often with your backlog of freebie points. Like, can I buy points? It's like, that's up to you. You can always buy points, and always put you statistically further ahead than where you are currently. But I'm trying to build a model that can be replicated by people that aren't using credit cards. So if you start using credit cards on this character, that character is no longer a model of this structure that we're attempting to build for free-to-play players. They can be a heavy hitter in our war, but they are no longer an instructor model. And they're like, okay, well, I'm actually going to leave it be. Then I'm just going to build something. Like, some of these people have like 4 or 5 accounts. They'd have instruction mode, like characters. They'd build accounts that were using our quick build techniques specifically. And then they have other accounts that they would build using other, like, either paying for it because they wanted to pay, or like experimenting on the next system that we were looking at building. So those are fun as hell to do. Those are cool guys. Like the guys that were really into that stuff, like super mathy nerd type people, all sorts of people, like housewives and college kids and mechanics. And there was a bouncer who worked at a strip club, and he'd play Mafia Wars between sets when he didn't have to pay attention to anything. That guy was a hoot. I liked him. He was fun. But all sorts of people from like a dozen different countries. It was a fun little project that we were involved in. Colorman Spell Point Bundle, good stuff. Thank you. Reading it and trying to work it into my games. Neat. I'm glad that you will. That's. I mean, it's just one example. It's just the most developed Magic paradigm that I currently have, because color magic and MTG is freaking awesome. But the elemental magic paradigm, light and shadow, is another great paradigm. But I haven't dived deep into other types of paradigms nearly as much as I had with color, just simply because of the Ravnica, Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, and the the Theros anthology, the Odyssey of the Theros Odyssey, is that what they call it? Anyway, and then Strixhaven, Curriculum, and Chaos. These three different MTG settings that they built out into D&D books. It's like, well, we have to have color mana somewhere, right? Nope, wasn't anywhere. It's like, well, crap. Again, if Wizards isn't going to build it, it's kind of up to me. And if it's not up to me, who's going to do it? So when it becomes a large enough problem, like this is a hole in your mechanics that we need to fill. Once I get to that point, it's I build the thing and I build it until it works. So Celavi, Ramble mode active. Clean up that cartography. I can tell I'm going to go over this whole thing again. How are we looking? We're looking good. Oh, I got on the wrong path somehow. Let's stay on plate. There we go. That's where we're at today, guys. So I feel let's see, that's there. It's there. Okay, so the cobblestones are supposed to go along here to here to here, like that. And that is what we're doing. So this is all lining up properly. We've successfully wrecked this place pretty damn good. I'm content with this to the point where I can step away from this for now. And we'll be back doing this again for another 3 hours tomorrow morning. And then Friday morning and Monday morning. So if this represents 24 hours worth of work, right? That means that this will be another 24 hours of work, which means this will probably be maybe 24 hours of work, maybe 24 hours of work, but probably more like, well, not actually like literally 24 hours. Like in the past 24 hours, we finished this quarter. So that tells me that if I maintain the same tempo of attention, I can do the same level of detail. I can have this quarter done by this time tomorrow as well, maybe. And if that's the case, if I am able to do that, then maybe I can knock this out by Saturday. And if I can, maybe that means I can have this knocked out by Monday. And on Monday, maybe we can start coloring, which means that by this time next week, we may be done with this map. And that'll be our third of 5 major maps that we need to complete. And it's a little slower than what I had hoped. I was hoping all this would have been done by the 23rd, but obviously my father died. And then I got COVID and flu. So things got knocked off schedule a little bit. But 5 major maps. This is our third. The underground laboratory is already well on its way to being done. So that's not going to be very heavy lifting. That's mostly just going to be coloring and texturing. And then we have to build the village map. And we have the rough draft of the village map already. But it's a lot of open space. So there's it's a village after all. You know, like the granary only has so much detail that I need to put into it for it to identify as a granary. So I'm expecting a week there. So I suspect we're going to be done with all of these maps, like all of the 5 major maps. I think we're going to be done with those probably by the second week of January. And then the vignettes, like the haunted gazebo and the Hellmouth, the Tree of Woe, the Forest of Solitude. There's all these like little map pieces that we can also build, but we'll have so much visual language built up between those 5 maps already that firing off the vignettes, we might be able to complete those like in every maybe 3 or 4 hours a piece. So before January is over, all of the maps will be done, and we'll be building token assets for like the tents, the air filters, the carts, the soldiers, the undead, like all that stuff is going to probably be well on its way to being finished before the start of February. And I'm anticipating Stuart finishing our edits and us revising that text in January. So by the time we get to February, all of the zip file assets should be done. The text should be ready to load into layouts, and we'll be building page layouts and then cutting pieces of the map, dropping them into the pages where they belong on the layout so we can build out all that layout, which probably means by March we'll be doing spot illustrations and then fleshing out the little corner bits and all the page dressing and all the little fiddly bits. So I'm hoping by the end of February, maybe first week of March, this will publish. And it'll officially be off our plate. And that's going to be a lot of work that we still have to do. Meanwhile, we still have the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book that's on our plate as well. This thing's like 100 pages. And the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book currently is 97. And we're doing cartography and token illustrations and stuff for that as well. So it's kind of a race between Eberron and Spelljammer to see which transcript is completed first. I'm 100% committed to getting these maps done before I start on any layouts for this book, as well as continuing Spelljammer into layouts as well. But I'm hoping that between the 2 editors, Adam for Spelljammer and Stuart for Eberron, that I am going to be in a place where I can do layouts with all the maps completed for both of those projects done and ready for that same space at the same time, so I can bounce between the 2 of them using different layout ideas I get off of each of them to make both of them stronger, and then fold everything together and then just do a shitload of spot illustration work between the 2 books. Get one of them released in March, the next one released in April, and then by February, I suspect we're going to have the initial manuscript for Martial Powers completed, which we'll be able to hand that off. And if I get to keep King Carcass as my editor, I will happily do so. Hand that off to him. Anticipate him getting that thing done. If I can get it to him by February, expecting to have him done with it by March, me cleaning it up by April, that is the Spelljammer book and the Eberron book will be off my plate by April. I will then be into page layouts for Martial Powers while we have Guilds and Kingdoms on deck for development for us to then build out as our next project to complete that manuscript by July, hand that off to Adam for him to edit Guilds and Powers, Guilds and Kingdoms, and have that back into production and have that published by November. Martial Powers finished by May or June. And once that's off my plate and we're back into the mill of Guilds and Kingdoms and Armies, and Squads and Armies. So those 2 books will be in production. And I can expect Guilds and Kingdoms to be completed probably by December. And then have Armies and Kingdoms finished by February 2024. And then have all the adventure components for the Dragonlance adventure book and the board game converted into the Squads and Armies mechanics, and have those published by August. So between now and August 2024, have all the In Command books done, Eberron Adventure is done, Martial Powers is done, all that stuff is off my plate. So then when D&D hits in August, I think it's in August, when D&D hits, I can then go back to all my spell point mechanic books, the Martial Power books, Elemental Key, the In Command Spelljammer series, the conversion of Dragonlance, Light of Xeraxis. I can take all of that work and then convert it into what will then be contemporary 1D&D language after it's all been completed. Because now that the books are published, the original version of the book on DMsGuild will always be there for you to use with 5th edition. You just grab the first version of it, is the 5th edition version, and then we would then replace it with a later version, which is the 1D&D 6th edition. You'll have both versions of the work with mechanical language that's valid for both systems, regardless of which one it is that you want to use. And then we'll have a completely clean plate for 1D&D with all the command books done, all of the Eberron Adventure done. The only things that we'll have left on our plate after the conversion is finished by the end of the year for all these projects, we'll be able to start 2025 with a completely clean plate of what's next. What do I want to do? By then we'll have an idea of how DMsGuild, 1D&D, and its virtual tabletop are interacting, so I'll know what kind of business decisions I need to make. And I won't have any significant projects on my plate because I'll have fulfilled everything. Like I can get back into Spellpoint Sorcerers with whatever it is that they do with the Sorcerer. The Warlock, Spellpoint Warlock may not be necessary anymore depending on what it is that they decide to do with it. So we get to swap all that stuff, the mechanical stuff that will be relevant at that point. And then we can start doing things like Planescape and the Modron March and In Command of the Blood War. War Mimics, Descent into Avernus conversion of swapping it out into the In Command system using the 1D&D rules. Like all that shit's going to be open door for us at that point. And that's 2025. So it's very long play that we're looking at. But so far, everything that Wizards of the Coast is saying seems to line up with that strategy as the right thing for us to do. And once we have all that content out there and we've converted Dragonlance, we've converted Light of Xeraxis, and in 2025 when we convert Descent into Avernus, those are 3 pretty significant adventures that they had built. We'll see what other IP products they have online for us at that point for us to then further change, and we can just dive into these small little exploration pieces, building off of the larger tools to build more and more expansive crossover bundle products. See who else is out there in the DMsGuild space that's creating content that's smart, that curves into the work that we're doing, and then start partnering with them to build bridge gaps between their products and my products, with conversion guides as like pay what you want freebie pieces to bridge the 2 of them, and then we can start talking about doing stock art. So that's my plans for the next few years. It starts anew again in 3 hours. We'll be back on for our lunch stream jam of working on the underbelly of Light of Xeraxis, the Citadel of Light, and I'll be working off stream to clean up this quarter page that we have and continue digging into the other sections you don't necessarily need me to do every single one of these things for you guys live on stream. You just want to see the highlights of the details and the progress that's coming along. So I can safely clean up this quarter and start working on this quarter over here. And if I can get that done, I can work on this quarter down here tomorrow on stream. And then just keep pushing myself around the map until hopefully by Saturday we're coloring. So I think I said Monday or Tuesday originally, but I suspect I can start coloring on Saturday. I bet I can get away with that. So Spelljammer cartography in 3 hours. Tomorrow morning, more Eberron map. Tomorrow afternoon, Marshall Powers rule updates. Thursday night. Oh, jeez, I have Thursday night too. Oh my god. I've got like 18 hours on Thursday to do whatever I want with. So Eberron cartography for certain. And then Marshall Powers for a while. I might just dive back into Eberron here again. And then on Friday morning, we'll have Eberron cartography again. And then in the afternoon, we'll have Citadel of Light again. On Saturday, we'll be back with Eberron cartography. And then Light of Zaraxis tokens. Sunday's off. On Monday, I have the day off again. Monday morning will be Eberron cartography again, potentially deep into color at that point. And then Monday afternoon will be Marshall Powers, converting subclass options into Marshall Power kits. And then Monday night, either Light of Zaraxis or Eberron cartography again. And then Tuesday morning, I'm back at work, back at my day job. And I will have Monday morning 2-hour stream like I usually do for probably either Eberron or Spelljammer token production, whichever one I need to do. And we'll be back into our normal pace of living life together. So that's where I'm at right now. I will see you guys in 3 hours. We'll be mapping the bottom of the Citadel. So in the meantime, have a great afternoon. I will catch up with you in 3 hours. See you.